up. Look what it's doing. It didn't turn around. I thought I was doing something special. Did it turn around now? Oh, woo. You guys are getting a close up though. Wait, what's happening? What is happening right now? Turn the sound off on my laptop. Guys, it hasn't been so long that I'm rusty. Has it been so long that I'm rusty? You know, I actually want to go outside. It would be so awesome to go outside and do a live. It's that time of year when it's really nice outside. But I don't know how wet everything is. It's not raining now, but you know, the morning dew. Let me turn this light behind me off. That better? Yeah, that's better. Good morning, you guys. I just wanted to come on here. My time has been tied up a little bit more as we move into our summer schedule, so that's why I haven't really been able to come on here and do lives, you know, as frequently. I don't anticipate being this busy once we get through June. But I'll come on here as often as I can. I have been studying the Gospels. It has been awesome. If this is your first time joining me, welcome. My name is Natasha. The way I like to do these lives is I do my morning chill, spending time in the Word, interacting with the Lord, and then I like to come on here and process. And so these are not prepared messages or anything. I'm just a regular person just like you. And I do these lives just to encourage you to go and do it too. God doesn't value me any more than he would value you. And I don't have, you know, any special favor that's making it work for me that it won't work for you if you take the time to. He's longing to spend time with you. And I get up early because I'm a morning person. Okay? But if you're a night person and it works better for you after all the kids go to bed, do it that way. But whatever, seize some time with the Lord. And I don't have like a prescribed amount of time. I just, you know, start the time, and when I feel like I've received everything for that time that I've allotted, you know, then it's over. I don't have it has to be 20 minutes, it has to be an hour. I don't have that. So it's been wonderful, and I've actually been amazed at spending long stretches of time that felt like 20 minutes because you're so into it. Okay? And so I would encourage you to do that as well. But today, and so I was saying that what I generally do with these lives, it's a live. I do have the chat on. I do seek that when comments come, um, unlike some chats, I'm not able to say what I need to say without going off on a rabbit trail if I keep stopping to respond to the chat. And so what I like to do is I'll say what I feel like was on my heart to say. Then I'll go back and look through the chat. So I love it when you say hi. I love it when you let me know where you're watching from. I love it when you let me know how the Lord is dealing with you on whatever it is I'm talking about. So I would encourage you to please comment in the chat. I do love and enjoy that, and I will see it and I will get back to it. So today, I'm pressed for time, but I wanted to talk about mercy. I wanted to talk about the mercy response. I wanted to talk about it because I feel like nowadays, the way things are set up, mercy is not a thing. Okay. And I feel like under the banner of justice, a lot of things are done that are the exact opposite of how Jesus would have responded to the situation. And the attitude behind it is not right. And so today, as I was reading the morning chill, it was interesting because I had to do Matthew chapter 18. And Matthew chapter 18 says, where did I see this? Matthew chapter 18, verse 7. Well, the whole conversation he's having with the disciples starts with them asking him, who is going to be greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Okay, so they're following him. One of the things that they're fascinated about with him is they realize he's the Messiah. And based on their scripture, their Messiah is a king whose kingdom never ends. Their Messiah is a king who walks with such authority that, think about the ultimate government, the ultimate kingdom where everything is prosperous and everything is fruitful, and you're God, so you're operating in the power of God. And so the disciples have been walking closely with Jesus. They've seen amazing miracles. They've seen people healed. They've seen him turn their assumptions upside down. Okay. Hey, hubby dubs, is people are starting to move around in the house, so don't be disturbed by anything you hear in the background. But they've seen all these amazing things. They've seen quote unquote supernatural things, but it's not supernatural. I mean, it's not supernatural in the sense that it's very natural for Jesus to be doing these things. And he's coming to show them that through him, they can do these things too. Okay? So to me, that's the actual greatness of the kingdom of heaven that was with them even then and there. And he has said it has come to us even now. Part of it for me is the understanding that I have access to the same operation mode that Jesus had access to. And he came to model that and demonstrate that by functioning the way, we ought to function. We do nothing in and of ourselves, but we just do what our Father wants us to do. And so, of course, anything we pray in Jesus' name, he gives us, because we have the mind of Christ. You know what I'm saying? And so they're fascinated. They're still thinking about this kingdom, and they still have an idea of what this kingdom is going to look like. And so far on earth, they've been the closest ones to him as his disciples, and they're seeing him do things like heal people. And, they had systems in place for setting people free from demon possession. And they're seeing Jesus turn those systems on its ear. I was reading about one situation where, they thought if someone was demon possessed, and it was a kind of demon that made them dumb so that they couldn't speak. I was reading somewhere that back then they believed that, well, you can't really cast that demon out, because they believed that in order to be able to cast a demon out, you had to get the demon to tell you his name. And once the demon told you his name, then you could use his name, because having his name gives you some kind of power and control over the demon. So once you know the demon's name, then you can cast it out. But if you can't figure out the demon's name, you can't cast it out. So that was the belief system of the day. So in comes Jesus, and he's casting out people that can't speak, thereby proving that, I have authority over you. I don't need to know your name to gain authority over you. When I tell you to come out, you come out. And that astounded the religious leaders of the day. And instead of thinking to themselves, wow, this really is the Messiah, we have God walking among us right now. Instead of thinking that, they thought, oh, well, he must be one of them. And this must be some trick. He must work for Beelzebub, which is the Lord of all the demons, which was considered the Lord of all the demons, right? And he was like, he must be working for Beelzebub. That's why he can cast out demons this way. There's no other explanation. It can't be because he's God. You know what I'm saying? And so so that's where Jesus has the whole conversation with them about, well, that can't be true. If I was part of the demonic realm, why would I be trying to cast demons out? I want them to make the people miserable. Why would I be wanting to cast them out? Your logic makes no sense. Okay? And so they're watching all of that, and I would imagine, I don't know, they must feel like some kind of celebrity group or something, with people, when I read about Jesus's ministry, I feel exhausted when I think about how it's described, how huge crowds that are described as multitudes, followed him. Thousands and thousands of people would gather wherever he would go, and the news of these miracles that he's doing, he's casting demons out of people. He's healing people of all kinds of sickness, including leprosy, which was the kind of situation, it's like a living death. You get this condition, and at the time they thought it was more contagious than it actually is. And so once you contracted it, not only did you have to deal with your body basically deteriorating and decaying and decomposing while you're still alive, okay, which is basically what happens. Everything rots and falls off until you're just done, right? And it happens slowly. It's like this slow death, which is why a lot of times leprosy is a picture for sin, is a picture for what sin does to us spiritually, right? And so even leprosy, which was a situation where it's bad enough that you're physically suffering, but now you're ostracized from society. And you have to live in communities with other people that have leprosy, or go out there and live by yourself until you die. You can't come near people, because you would, not only do they think that you're so contagious, you might give the condition to somebody else, but you're also ceremonially unclean. And so it interferes with all their temple worship and things like that, to come into contact with people with leprosy. But yet Jesus rolls through. He touches people with leprosy. He allows them to be, them to touch him. I came. The message is loud and clear. I came to take the things that make you unclean unto myself, so that you yourself don't have to continue to be unclean. And when they touched him, and when he touched them, the illnesses disappeared. They were completely healed. He had 100% success rate. There's no account of where somebody came to Jesus with some kind of sickness and condition, and he didn't heal them. Or somebody came and asked him, are you willing to heal me? And he said, I'm not willing. But he always said, I am willing. He always healed whoever came to him and reached out to him for healing. Even in situations where the condition had progressed so far, and they had gotten to Jesus in the season where the person had died. We see over and over situations where these people come back to life. Jesus has the mentality, they're only asleep, and he literally says to them, wake up. And they wake up amidst people ridiculing him, mocking him, thinking he's crazy. Clearly this person is dead. The funeral service is going on right now. This person is dead. There's even a story that I read in the Gospels where Jesus is on his way from point A to point B. There's a funeral procession, and I think it's a son. I think I mentioned it in a previous live, and I think I said it was a daughter, but I think it was a son had died, and the funeral procession is going on. Everybody's weeping and devastated. Jesus walks by and touches the coffin, and the son pops back up. Could you imagine that? You know what I'm saying? These are the sort of things that they're experiencing while following Jesus. Okay? That's amazing in and of itself. Okay? People want him, leaders want him, people want to ask him questions, and they're the disciples. They have access to him. They can come right up to him, whereas other people struggle to come close to him. Even his brothers and sisters. I was reading about one miracle, the one where they lowered they had to cut a hole in the roof or lift something off the roof to lower the paralytic to where Jesus was sitting so that he could be healed, because the crowd was so thick they couldn't get close enough to him. And I think it was during that same story that we hear that his brothers and sisters, were trying to get him to come to them. We're trying to get him to come out because they thought he was losing it. You know what I'm saying? The Bible says that his family thought he was beside himself. And they tried to rein him in. We do know later on that they come to follow him, they come to believe in him. But in parts of his ministry, they thought he was going a bit too far. And so even his natural family didn't have the kind of access to him that the disciples had all the time. And so I would imagine they felt like they were somebody, and thinking along the lines of eternity, and even possibly maybe some of them thinking he was going to do something in their day, even though he told them plainly that he came, that he was going to be persecuted, that he was going to die, and that he was going to be raised from the dead on the third day. He plainly told them that. But it also says over and over that they didn't understand. They didn't understand what he meant. They want, is it a figure of speech? Is this a parable? Is this an analogy he's making? They couldn't quite let go of the cultural expectation that the people of their day had of what the Messiah would do when he actually got here. And so they still had that hope. And I feel like being close to Jesus, I feel like they thought about, okay, well, where am I going to fit into this picture? And so this conversation goes on because they ask him, who's going to be greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And I feel like the implication is, what can I do so that I can do whatever it takes so that I could be one of these people that can be greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Or even if they weren't thinking that way, they just want to kind of have a worldly understanding of what kind of hierarchy God has set up in the kingdom of heaven. As if God is going to show the same kind of favoritism, and as if he's going to pander to his court in the same way that human kings and human leaders do. Okay? And so it's very interesting how he responds to them. He responds to them in a number of different ways. He says a number of different things, okay? And at the end of the day, he pulls out what's at the root of everything, and that's what we're dealing with today. What's at the root of everything is what we're dealing with today, okay? So he starts off by, taking what would have been considered the person at the very bottom of the totem pole in society. He takes a child and he puts a child in front of them, and he says, you want to be greatest in the kingdom of heaven? You're going to have to humble yourself and start again, and approach me like this little child right here. Okay? Unless you can operate like that, you're not even going to be able to, forget about who's going to be greatest. You're not even going to be able to make it into the kingdom. Okay? And already, I'm thinking to myself, wow, where does humility fit into our culture today? We're so sensitive. We have our thoughts and ideas, and, we're so quick to be offended by people. We're so quick to try to set up a defense. And it's something that I struggle with too, because I'm part of it. It's like, don't let him talk to you that way. What, the cashier did this, we need to get the manager over here and let me publicly right the wrong that has been done to me. We sometimes don't have any kind of mercy and any kind of grace for one another, okay? But yet we draw that. We try to draw that, as much as we can for ourselves from God. You know what I'm saying? And so first he tells them, humility. Humility is step one. Okay. And then he goes on to make this statement. He talks about, little children and how important they are and how valued they are. And this is where he makes he ultimately ends up talking about how, God values them so much that they even have angels assigned to them. And these angels even see the face of God. You know what I'm saying? In our culture and in our society, we don't tend to always necessarily elevate the weak and the children, the lowest ones on the totem pole. They're at our mercy. We control what happens to them. But as he's talking to his disciples, he's saying children are valuable to me. you know when and everything that's in the news right now, when I hear about somebody going up and shooting up an elementary school, I mean, really? And when I think about, even with everything that's been going on with us trying to manage COVID, how we've handled the kids, how long they've had to struggle, you know in order for everyone to be safe, quote unquote. And I question the methods that have been used. You know what I'm saying? God says God values the children so much that they even have angels assigned to them. Angels that see the face of God, not some random angel way down the rank that never gets into the throne room. You know what I'm saying? And then he talks about how, you better watch how you treat one of these little ones. And God doesn't want any of them to perish. God doesn't want harm to come to any of them. And God will deal with the one who causes them harm. It says that God's judgment will come on that person. It says, and when that person faces God's judgment, it says that, that person will wish that instead of having to deal with what God will do, a millstone. Think about a heavy stone. He would wish a heavy stone would have been tied around his neck and that he were cast into the sea. That horrific outcome is milder than what will happen to him when God deals with him for just mistreating one of these little ones. Okay? And so, you guys, when he goes on to say this, right after he says, in verse 6, he says, whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were drowned in the depth of the sea. Then he says, woe to the world because of offenses. For offenses must come, but woe to that man by whom the offense comes. Okay? And I was just fixated on woe to the world because of offenses. The person giving offense, the person responding to the offense. It's woe both to the person giving the offense, and it's also woe to the person receiving the offense. So I was drawn to the person, the response that we make to the offense, because that's where he goes next. Because he talks about the kingdom of heaven being like a king who decides one day, okay, I'm going to settle the accounts that I have with my servants. Okay, it's time for them to pay their bills. It's time for them to answer for what they owe me. Okay, and it talks about this one servant who owes a sum of money. Okay, he owes the master a large sum of money. Okay, and so the day comes when the master is described as a king. The day comes when the master says, it's time for me to collect what you owe me. It's time for you to pay me your debt, your bill. It's time for you to pay the bill. And the man doesn't have enough money to pay the bill. Okay, and it talks about how in that culture, if you couldn't pay your bill, then you were sold. You entered into this, and there was a limited amount of time. You didn't get sold for life. Like if you read through the Old Testament, you can find out. But you could go to another family and say, I'm gonna offer you my services to pay off the debt. So you kind of became a slave or more, but it was more like an indentured servant, in order to pay your debt. And so it says this man owed so much that what he was facing was him being sold, his wife being sold, his children being sold, everything he had being sold to try to scratch the surface to cover the debt that he owed. Okay. And so the king goes to do that, to mete out the judgment. And for me, that's a picture of the king will mete out the judgment. The natural order of things is to pass the judgment for justice to happen. Any other outcome is mercy. The king doesn't owe this servant any mercy. Okay, there was no corruption or foul play in the story at all. The servant actually does owe these, I think it's something like 10,000 talents. Yeah, the servant owes him 10,000 talents. That's in verse 24. Okay? He actually does owe that. Okay? And so if you can't pay, this is how the system was set up for you to pay. Okay? And so it says that the servant throws himself at the mercy of the king and begs him for mercy and asks him to just have mercy on him and don't have everything sold and everything like that. And so it says in verse 26, the servants therefore fell down before him, saying, Master, have patience with me, and I will pay you all. In verse 27, it says, Then the master of the servant was moved with compassion, released him, and forgave him the debt. So he received mercy. He received forgiveness, even though he didn't deserve it. It all came from the master. And I think in today's day, in our culture today, I think it's hard for us to relate to this. It can be. Because I feel like we have a real entitlement culture. Like, we tend to think we're entitled to things. Like, we're entitled. Even if, we didn't work for these things, or we didn't position ourselves in order to be able to receive these things, or we were born into a situation where we didn't have the same access to these things, we have the belief that somebody owes us these things, that we deserve a good life, okay? Even though our circumstances didn't add up to it. And we don't see receiving things that our circumstances didn't add up to being as mercy that's extended to us. You know what I'm saying? Favor that's given to us. We don't tend to see it that way in this culture. We tend to believe, we're owed a home, we're owed food, we're owed money to spend and get what we want, we're owed health care, we're owed everything. We believe we're entitled to everything. Okay? And we don't really think about the fact that somebody is paying for it. There's no free government money floating around in the world. Someone is paying for it. Okay? And there's a real sense of entitlement, and we don't think that it's mercy for someone who has earned and worked for, or was positioned in a way to receive certain things, to give of what they have to you who don't have it. We don't see it as mercy. We don't see it as favor. We don't see it as a gift. A lot of times we see these things as things that are owed to us. And I've kind of been guilty of that myself. I think it's part of the culture. And it makes us an ungrateful generation. Okay? And it can also make us an out of order generation, where we can have the mentality that I'll just choose to suck up everything I can get for free, and I won't do anything to change my situation, so that I begin to work for what I have, so that now I can be in a position to show mercy and be generous to someone who doesn't have. Okay? So I feel like the Bible speaks a lot to giving and sharing and looking at the poor and caring for the needy. Okay? But it doesn't talk about entitlement at all. All of that is, to me, described as love and mercy and things like that, not something that's owed. You know what I'm saying? You're doing it out of love, but it's not because these people that don't have, you owe it to them no matter what. You know what I'm saying? And God, I feel like everything that I've read is making me see that God wants our heart to be loving and merciful and kind, because he's loving and merciful and kind, because he's the king in this story. He showed this servant mercy. He didn't have to forgive him his debt, but he did. Okay? But then as the story progresses, we see that now this servant is going around his merry business, okay? Merry way, okay? Then he finds himself in the exact same situation with someone else, except now he's like the king and the other person is like the servant, okay? And this person comes to him owing him money. And the situation is laughable, because the amount of money that this person owes him pales in comparison to what he himself had owed the king and received forgiveness from the king for. It's like saying, I owed the king $1 million and he forgave me. Now here comes this dude that owes me $100. And as the story progresses that Jesus is telling, this servant refuses to forgive the other dude, even though the other dude appeals to him in the same way that the servant had appealed to the king. It's like the servant makes no connection. You know, he doesn't think to himself, oh wow, I got the king forgave me and gave me a chance. Now I must forgive this new guy and give him a chance. He doesn't even see it. He doesn't even think it. Okay? And it's almost like he's offended that this servant, this new dude, can't pay him. And he throws the book at him. He throws the book at him. He refuses to give the other guy time. And he doesn't show him mercy. It says he has him thrown into prison. You know? Because he wants his money. And he doesn't see that I've been forgiven. Why can't I forgive somebody else? Okay? So it's very interesting to me, because to connect all the dots, first Jesus starts and gives them the example of the little child. Then he moves on, you know, then there's a conversation about, well, you know, how often do I need to forgive my brother? And he says, you need to forgive your brother 70 times. And then he moves on and explains to them why that's the case. Okay, you're concerned with an offense being done to you, but you need to remember that you've done an even bigger offense to God, your loving Father. And God, your loving Father, is showing you mercy through me. If you can receive mercy from God, your loving Father, and walk in forgiveness and new life, and have the position, and I'm saying, and this is for us now, after Jesus died and rose again and gave us everything, that you're a son and a daughter now. If you could be forgiven that much, there is really nothing that can happen to you in this life that somebody can do to you that you can't also forgive. Okay? And so that's why he tells them this story of the king and the servant, and how he's forgiven, but then he can't forgive. The servant can't forgive when he's in the same situation. Okay? And the resolution that Jesus makes is really harsh. Okay? Because what ends up happening is people start looking at the situation and they think it's not fair. Okay? It says in verse 31 of Matthew 18, it says, so when his fellow servants saw what had been done, they were very grieved, and came and told their master all that had been done. Then the master, after he had called him, said to him, you wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt because you begged me. Should you not also have had compassion on your fellow servant, just as I had pity on you? And his master was angry and delivered him to the torturers until he should pay all that was due him. Okay? And so now, it's not that some extra punishment was given to this wicked servant. The mercy was just reversed. Okay. Well, you didn't show mercy, so I'm not, forget it. Pay me back the 10,000 talents. Oh, you can't? Well, these are the next steps for justice. Okay. And so the implication is we must be merciful. We must have a merciful response, or God won't be merciful with us. Okay? But for me, I'll even take it one step further. How can I not be merciful when I'm walking in so much mercy with God? If I really know God, how can I not be merciful? And you guys, it's really challenged me. It's challenged me in the everyday details of my life. It's challenged me when I go to the store and I'm dealing with, poor customer service, inept service, or I'm on a line and a mother is having a bad day with her kids. You know what I'm saying? And it's not that these people quote unquote owe me anything, but I feel like in the culture, I feel like I'm owed good customer service. I'm owed an excellent experience when I go to the store and I could get in, get what I want, get in and out in a timely fashion. Or if it's not the store, it's customer service when I'm having some technical difficulties with some kind of software or some kind of website or some kind of company that I've ordered something online from. You know what I'm saying? They owe me this. I'm owed this. And when I don't receive it, I must rise up and, throw the book at them and respond to them, with the fullness of what I am owed. And when I begin to behave that way, I notice that I'm not seeing that person. I'm not seeing these people. I don't know the customer service person that I'm talking to that doesn't speak English very well. And some of us, I have heard, well, we're in America. I have heard some scathing comments about that person that's working a job and doing the best that they can and struggling to communicate. Okay? If anything, I would turn my angst more toward the company that hired the person with those limitations more so than to take it out on the person. Why can't they speak English? They shouldn't be doing this job if they can't speak English. Would you like to do that job? That job is not glamorous. I think we should be applauding that person that's doing everything they can to work for themselves so they can support their family and put food on the table. You know what I'm saying? But we're giving them a piece of our mind. I need this thing to work. I'm at work. And this person can't even speak English, and we're taking it out on them. Write a letter to the company. Complain to the company. But I feel like the nastiness is turned on that poor person that you're actually talking with that can't speak English. Meanwhile, a lot of these people that can't speak English, you'll find that maybe they're struggling to speak, but they understand you perfectly. And we in America can't even do that after having how much language lessons in middle school and high school and even college at some points that is a requirement in our educational system. Yet we can't even communicate as well as them. But yet we'll get on the phone and deal with them, and at least they understand what we're saying, and we can't even understand what they're saying if we were put in a situation with the language we learned all throughout school. I'm sorry, guys. I'm a teacher. This is my soapbox. I didn't mean to go there, but I'm challenged, guys. I'm challenged. I am challenged. The level of pride, the lack of humility that it takes to behave that way, and the fact that we even have a cancel culture. That you're just randomly canceling people, and the stuff we cancel people for. I don't know, guys. The more I'm reading through the words of Jesus, the more I'm realizing he wouldn't be down with this stuff at all. And we shouldn't be down with it either. But I think we're down with it because we don't read his word. So we don't actually know how he thinks.
Yeah, we don't read the word.
Thanks, Hubs. But anyway, I'm gonna climb down my soapbox now. But that's what I had for you guys this morning. And that's what I'm praying for in my life, that I'm trying to practice, that I'm trying to walk through. More mercy, more mercy, more mercy. Be merciful. Be merciful the way God, your loving Father, is merciful. The way Jesus demonstrated mercy as he walked on earth. I need to have a mercy response. So you guys have a blessed day. I don't see anything in the chat. So I hope this will be a blessing to whoever watches it later. So I will see you guys in the next live. Be blessed.